Kind Old Man and the Little Sparrow. Deep in the misty mountains of Japan, where the air was colder than a grumpy bear's paw, lived a truly gentle man named Toshi. He was so kind, he even apologized to the pebbles he accidentally stepped on. One icy morning, Toshi heard a tiny, distressed peep from a frozen, thorny bush. He carefully pushed aside the stiff branches and found a minuscule, shivering sparrow, no bigger than his thumbnail. Toshi tenderly scooped up the bird, whom he immediately named Suzu, which means bell in Japanese for her tiny, sweet sound. He whispered, "Don't you worry, little one, you're safe now." Back in his cozy, if simple, cottage, Toshi warmed Suzu by the hearth and offered her his finest breakfast, soft, plump rice. He even chewed a few grains just right so they were perfect for a tiny, shocked beak. Suzu immediately felt better. Her first full-bellied chirp sounded like a tiny, triumphant trumpet. She flew happy circles around Toshi's head, making him giggle until his tummy ached. But not everyone was delighted. Toshi shared his cottage with his wife Haki, whose patience was as thin as tissue paper, and whose heart was as cold as that grumpy bear's paw. Haki's frown deepened every time Toshi shared rice with Suzu. "That bird eats more than a whole squirrel in winter," she grumbled, stomping her foot so hard the floorboards jumped. "Our rice is for people." One disastrous afternoon, Haki snapped, "Out, out, you tiny, expensive flutterball." She grabbed the biggest, noisiest straw broom she could find and began to swing it wildly, nearly knocking over a perfectly good vase. Suzu, terrified by the terrible swoosh, thwack of the angry broom, shot through the open window like a tiny, feathered arrow. She flew away, never looking back at the awful, noisy chase. When Toshi came home, he found his cottage silent and strangely neat. Haki was breathing heavily, clutching her huge broom. Toshi immediately saw the empty window and felt his heart sink all the way to his knees. "My little Belle," Toshi cried, holding the empty rice bowl. "I must find her. She needs me." Ignoring Haki's eye-rolling, he tied his sturdiest walking sandals and packed a single rice ball for the long, unknown journey. Toshi set off, asking every creature he met. He asked a grumpy badger, a stoic deer, and a rather talkative squirrel perched high on an oak branch. The squirrel only wanted to discuss the quality of Toshi's rice ball. Days later, exhausted and slightly dizzy, Toshi finally met a wise old tortoise munching slowly on moss. "The land of the sparrows?" the tortoise slowly sighed. "It's just past the peak of the Whispering Mountain, my friend." Toshi followed the instructions and soon heard a distant, delightful sound. It was the sound of 1,000 tiny, happy chirps. He pushed through a final thicket of ferns and gasped. He had arrived at the land of the sparrows. Hundreds of sparrows looked up, paused their fluttering, and then one small, excited flash of brown flew straight towards him. "Suzu," he cried. Suzu's whole family gathered, and Toshi was presented to Suzu's parents, Haruki and Akari. Haruki, with his very important-looking crest, bowed low and declared, "You saved our daughter, kind man. You shall be honored." They hosted a grand welcome feast. Toshi was served tiny berries on fresh lily pad plates and miniature cups of dewdrop tea. He pretended not to notice how difficult it was to eat with his large, clumsy fingers. After the feast, Haruki presented 2 magnificent chests. "Please choose a gift for your kindness, Toshi-san," he chirped. "The box of great size, or the box of humble proportions." Toshi, being the most modest and least greedy man in all the mountains, looked at the giant chest and then at the tiny one. "The little box, please," he chuckled. "A large one would trip me on the way home." He bid the entire happy sparrow flock a joyful goodbye and set off, carrying his very light, very small box. The journey home seemed twice as fast because his heart was so full of happiness. When he arrived, Toshi gently placed the small box on the floor and opened it. Bing, bling, clatter. Out tumbled a cascade of gold coins, dazzling diamonds, and pearls that shimmered like captured moonlight. Hockey, who had been sulking about the empty cottage, let out a shriek that rattled the rafters. Her eyes grew wider than dinner plates, and dollar signs practically spun in them. "A small box holds that?" she gasped. Without a single word, Hockey snatched Toshi's sandals and map and marched out the door. She didn't even bother tying the laces. She practically flew to the land of the sparrows, muttering about lost time and huge profits. She slammed into the bamboo grove. "I demand the largest chest," she boomed, not bothering to be polite. Haruki and Akari exchanged a weary, knowing look. They slowly pushed the great-sized box towards her. Hockey heaved the heavy box onto her back and raced home, her mind already spending the treasure. She tore off the lid the second she arrived, only to find it completely, disappointingly empty, save for a single neat note that read, "Do not be greedy."